The Game Awards 2023 featured a lot of incredible game reveals and updates. Jeff Keighley announced that the Game Awards 2023 had 118 million live streams, setting a new viewership record for the show. Over the course of its 10-year history, the Game Awards slowly established itself as the winter equivalent of E3. Providing video game publishers a platform to reveal and advertise their upcoming titles, while also being a celebration of all the games that defined a given year. With the permanent cancellation of E3, the Game Awards further cemented its role in the gaming industry, and Keighley certainly hasn't shied away from changing the show. In this video, I'm gonna deep dive into only the game announcements from the show. The team at Archetype Entertainment just unveiled their first game, Exodus, a third-person sci-fi epic starring Matthew McConaughey. Founded in April 2019, Archetype Entertainment is spearheaded by many former BioWare icons, such as James Olin and Drew Karpyshyn, who now serve as the head of studio and lead writer on Exodus, respectively. Responsible for BioWare's golden era of games such as Baldur's Gate 2, Knights of the Old Republic, Neverwinter Nights, Mass Effect, and Dragon Age Origins. It's pretty clear that Exodus is their attempt at rekindling some of that magic. The cinematic trailer made its debut at the Game Awards 2023. It was made by the famous Blur Studio, which previously worked with BioWare to make the beloved cinematics for Star Wars: The Old Republic. While the trailer itself does not reveal much about the lore, it does set the tone for what kind of game Exodus is going to be. Though the parallel with the Mass Effect universe is obvious, Exodus seems to also take some inspiration from time dilation. Taking this into account, there is arguably no one better to headline Exodus than the lead of Interstellar himself, Matthew McConaughey, who appeared on stage to announce that he would be voicing one of its characters. Pitched as a next-gen, story-driven role-playing game set in the stars, Exodus aims to marry the cinematic storytelling and broad player agency familiar to BioWare fans, with modern AAA gameplay. The concept of Exodus that makes it so interesting is its time dilation, as players will take on the role of the traveler. While not outright confirmed by the trailer, Exodus will allow players to witness the repercussions of their choices play out over the course of decades, if not lifetimes. Whereas traveling via the relays in Mass Effect featured no time dilation, the gates in Exodus very much slow down time for the traveler passing through. Using the gates as a storytelling device, Exodus will explore the butterfly effect of player decisions a step further than Mass Effect could. As travelers, players will get to explore the vast reaches of an unfamiliar galaxy while avoiding the hostile Celestials, who appear to be one of the primary antagonists of the setting. Exodus was first teased back in 2020, when Wizards of the Coast announced that it had formed Archetype Entertainment, a brand new studio comprised of industry veterans. At that time, little was known about Archetype's plans, other than the fact that the fresh studio was at work on a new science fiction RPG designed around player choice. Now, that RPG has been revealed as Exodus, seemingly a cinematic, narrative-driven game featuring at least one Hollywood star. Based on the new Exodus trailer, information about its developers, and additional news about its design, it seems like it could be a natural extension of the Mass Effect series. Mass Effect 4 could return to the series' roots, but Exodus might just beat it to the punch. The upcoming game has been described as a story-driven, choice-focused RPG in space, which are all obviously things it would have in common with Mass Effect. Look past these more surface-level, genre-specific parallels, however, and some additional similarities between the games emerge. Additionally, Archetype has confirmed the existence of companions, who can be interacted with both on and off the battlefield. These gameplay considerations, along with the game's apparent focus on meaningful, impactful player choice, make it sound a lot like a modern-day Mass Effect game. It could therefore benefit from advancements in both game design and gaming technology, while learning from the successes and failures of RPGs released since Mass Effect 3. Exodus clearly taking heavy inspiration from the best of other cosmic media such as the hit 2014 film Interstellar. Even the premise of the film and upcoming game are overtly similar, with humanity being forced into space exploration thanks to the decaying nature of Earth. With the main goal of finding a hospitable new home among the stars, the player will have to dictate the actions of a group of brave space pioneers across potential planets, making the core narratives of Exodus and Interstellar extremely similar. One of the major points of Exodus: The Game Awards appearance was its use of time dilation as a major game mechanic. This refers to the time-related hazards of space exploration, where minutes on a distant planet can equate to decades of time passing on Earth. Time dilation in Interstellar was one of its most poignant and chilling aspects. This plot device clearly hopes to hold the same emotive weight in Exodus. During the presentation, McConaughey cheekily remarked about his own past experience with time dilation, clearly alluding to the similarities between both projects. Thanks to things like time dilation and the risks associated with exploring distant planets, the player will have to make some morally taxing choices for the greater good of the human race, with sacrifice being at the core of Exodus, much like Interstellar. While the upcoming game is unafraid to showcase the inspiration it has taken from the film, there are many elements of Exodus that set it apart from Interstellar. For example, Exodus has a clear alien focus that Interstellar did not feature, with an ancient race of beings known as Celestials being at the heart of the game's narrative. The player will be able to scavenge and utilize powerful celestial technology throughout Exodus, while also directly fighting the advanced species in riveting combat sequences. Interstellar, on the other hand, had a clearly human focus, so the presence of Celestials may be the most defining difference between both franchises. Exodus clearly has immense respect for the story and experience of Interstellar, and the project is rightfully unafraid to state its inspirations while still curating a unique standalone experience. Many feel that BioWare has passed its prime, with the Mass Effect series in particular suffering a blow to its reputation with Mass Effect Andromeda, its mixed reception, and its complicated legacy. This loss of faith from fans has cooled expectations for Mass Effect 4, which has only received a few teasers that, ironically, are arguably less informative than the trailer Exodus showed at the Game Awards. With all this in mind, it will be interesting to see what Archetype manages to produce with Exodus, which is undeniably similar to Mass Effect. Hopefully, it manages to recreate what made BioWare's sci-fi opus so special, while still having its own identity. No release date has been given for Exodus as yet, but the official website for the game has already launched. They showed the gameplay of a few seconds after the cinematic trailer, and it looks good. Definitely I'm looking to immerse myself in the Exodus universe. A new trailer for the upcoming VR game Asgard's Wrath 2 was revealed at the Game Awards 2023. It showcases some of the first-person action players will experience in the game and some of the interesting locales, such as ancient Egypt. There's also a hint at some of the puzzles in the game. Developed by Sanzara Games and published by Oculus Studios, the Asgard's Wrath series began in 2019 with an action role-playing game of the same name. In the title, players work to fulfill some requests from Loki, the god of mischief. However, in the end, he betrayed the player. Asgard's Wrath 2 picks up where the first game left off and sees players possessing different people in order to become more powerful and face off against Loki again. Overall, reception for Asgard's Wrath were solid and claimed to be one of greatest VR games of all time. At its core, Asgard's Wrath 2 is a free-roaming RPG that boasts a 60-hour campaign along with an endless roguelite dungeon crawler mode that players unlock early in the story. Many VR games struggle to retain players for more than a few hours besides replayable titles like rhythm games or sports games, so Asgard's Wrath 2 is paving the way for more content-heavy VR titles. This does come at the expense of hard drive space, however. The original Asgard's Wrath had a staggering 121 GB file size, and the sequel is shaping up to be even bigger. This could prove seriously troublesome for Quest 2 players who opted for the 128 GB version of the headset. Although virtual reality has come a long way in recent years, the platform is still lacking when it comes to larger, more open, content-rich games. Currently, some of the best options for players seeking larger immersive worlds are VR ports of earlier games, such as Skyrim VR, Fallout 4 VR, and Elite Dangerous. Most VR games are much more focused experiences, particularly when it comes to VR games for Meta's Quest headsets. Asgard's Wrath 2, on the other hand, is positively massive in scope. The game promises a 60-hour campaign, which is several times the length of big titles like Half-Life Alyx and Astro Bot Rescue Mission. The game features tons of activities normally found in flat-screen AAA RPGs, and it's not hard to believe that players can rack up several dozen hours going through the available content. Rather than taking place in a single world, players will travel to a variety of large free-roam environments such as ancient Egypt or Norse realms like the Land of Fire. Exploration is non-linear, and players can opt to either follow the main story or embark on side quests and other activities. There are caves and ruins to explore, puzzles to solve, and lots of other activities such as a fishing minigame, cooking, and crafting. Beyond the campaign, Asgard's Wrath 2 also features an endlessly replayable roguelite dungeon crawling mode called the Uncharted Rift. Players will progress through procedurally generated dungeons that involve a variety of enemies as well as some puzzle solving, with the overall goal of surviving as long as possible to collect loot that can be brought back into the main campaign. A procedural roguelite VR dungeon crawler is practically an entire game in itself, so players should be able to kill plenty of time trying to beat their survival records. However, one of the most interesting aspects of the Uncharted Rift is the asynchronous multiplayer aspect. When players finally die during their run, they'll have the option to send their character off as either a divine soul or a dread soul into other players' Uncharted Rifts to either help or hinder them during their runs. Still, it's a welcome addition to the roguelite mode, and it will be interesting to see how many players opt to help or harm their fellow players. Asgard's Wrath 2 was just released a week ago, and the reception is incredible for the game, and it is exclusive to the Meta Quest. Banishers Ghosts of New Eden is the upcoming action role-playing game by Don't Nod. Responsible for developing Life is Strange, Banishers Ghosts of New Eden is an entirely new approach as the studio attempts to tell a darker, fantasy narrative with various powers and unique mechanics that set it apart from the rest of the games in the genre. Don't Nod is relatively new to the world of action RPGs. They usually make story-driven titles such as the popular game Life is Strange and the relatively unknown Gerda, A Flame in Winter. This is the first massive undertaking by the small studio, but the Banishers Ghosts of New Eden looks to be a well-polished title with an interesting premise. Banishers Ghost of New Eden has received a release date at the Game Awards 2023. The game is set to launch on the Epic Games Store and console devices on February 13, 2024. Fans have been waiting eagerly to get their hands on this game, and with only a couple of months left until launch, they will be eager to add the game to their wishlists. The Game Awards present an excellent time for developers to show off what they've been working on behind the curtain. Don't Nod featured a small teaser for the game showcasing story moments and unique abilities to an uproar of fans. There is a lot of positive discussion about this title, and Don't Nod is poised to deliver. While Don't Mind might not have a ton of action RPG experience, they have done an incredible job in crafting the story for Life is Strange and Gerda. These games are narrative-focused, with compelling characters that are interesting to follow. The premise for Banishers, Ghost of New Eden is dark and grim. The trailers show dual protagonists Antia and Red Mac, who serve as Banishers, or ghost hunters of the world. Set in the 15th century, the world design looks on point, and the atmosphere feels haunting. There is also a romantic aspect to the relationship between Antia and Red Mac. While this is all speculation at this point, you can expect a heart-wrenching tragedy that will keep you on the edge of your seat. The gameplay mechanics for Banishers Ghosts of New Eden look polished. There is a level of finesse in the movement and combat animations, which seem fluid. Banishers is a game about exorcising ghosts and spirits from the world of the living. The world places a heavy emphasis on the separation of these two worlds, as the Banishers, or ghost hunters, have specific laws and rules about dealing with spirits. They will have to battle supernatural foes, make difficult decisions that impact the story, and utilize Antia's spirit powers to get the edge in difficult encounters. Players also have access to a bunch of different weapons and skills with a base level of customization to keep the game feeling fresh. Banishers Ghosts of New Eden is set to release in the second week of February next year, and I cannot wait to get my hands on this new title by Don't Nod. Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons will be getting a remake for modern consoles. The previously rumored Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons remake has finally been confirmed. The emotional narrative adventure game by Joseph Fares and Starbreeze Studios received much praise for its unique premise in 2013. The player having control of two characters using one controller was a refreshing mechanic that wowed many audiences when it was released. The game also paved the way for similarly themed games such as A Way Out and It Takes Two. The game didn't just make a mark because of its unique control scheme. Some would say that Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons' story can be considered one of the best. The gripping tale perfectly utilized the dual control mechanics. Not only that, but even the puzzles to be solved were tactfully inserted into the story while still taking advantage of the two analog sticks set up to create a challenging but engaging title that many fans had adored. During the Game Awards 2023, Joseph Fares announced that the Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons remake will be released on PS5, Xbox and PC on February 28, 2024. Developer Avant-Garden will take the helm on this project, while 505 Games will be the publisher. Fares endorsed the upcoming title by mentioning that the game will be a faithful retelling of the 2013 classic, albeit using Unreal Engine 5. It was also revealed that, aside from being able to play the classic single-player experience, fans will be able to enjoy the title via local co-op. This means two separate players can control the brothers on their own, providing yet another interesting spin from the original. Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons remake might just be the first in many surprise and rumored announcements during the Game Awards 2023, but it definitely had the attention of the gaming community. While the tease was more than enough to entice many fans of the title, 505 Games and Avant-Garden has a high bar to clear with the expectations set from the original. Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons captured the hearts of many players back in the day, and this remake will be set to introduce the full experience to modern gamers and die-hard fans alike. A highly anticipated Chinese epic, Black Myth: Wukong, has finally confirmed its official release date as August 20, 2024. The announcement came during an exclusive trailer shown at the Game Awards 2023. I have been waiting for quite some time to hear updates on the game, and players have now begun marking their calendars for Black Myth: Wukong's launch next year. Based on the legendary Chinese novel Journey to the West, Black Myth: Wukong is an epic that sees players take on the role of the iconic Monkey King and battle against mythological beasts. The game will feature action-packed gameplay and character transformation mechanics, making the title one of the most anticipated upcoming launches of the RPG genre. Featuring gorgeous graphics, an iconic story, and unique mechanics, Black Myth: Wukong has been on gamers' radars since it was first announced 3 years ago. Many were impressed, and a 13-minute pre-alpha gameplay trailer was shared by developer Game Science in August 2020. Now that the game has been confirmed for an August 20, 2024, release date, fans are fully preparing to venture into the mythical realm of Chinese legends. Currently available for wishlisting on Steam and the Epic Games Store, Black Myth: Wukong will also be coming to PlayStation 5 and Xbox. The exclusive trailer revealed some of the characters, environments, and weapons that players can look forward to, and personoid animals, burning temples, and a magical whip were all showcased as well. Black Myth: Wukong is my most anticipated game for 2024, and I'm gonna be all over when it comes out. Bandai Namco reveals a brand new trailer for the newest entry in the classic Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi series, formerly titled Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. This trailer was unveiled at the Game Awards 2023 show, alongside news of other shocking announcements like God of War Ragnarok's new roguelike mode, Hideo Kojima's new Xbox exclusive game, and more. Some fans were hoping for more news regarding the newest Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi game, which was unveiled at the Game Awards. Fans were first given a small teaser trailer for this new Dragon Ball game during the Dragon Ball Games Battle Hour event this past March, which showed Goku transforming into Super Saiyan Blue. Rumors and leaks swirled around 2023, including teases from the English dub cast of Dragon Ball and speculated release windows. Fans first learned about how Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi would be getting a new subtitle this past October, indicating that it would be called Sparking Zero, which turned out to be correct. The announcement trailer for Dragon Ball Sparking Zero shows that it will be a 3D arena fighting game, just like past entries in the series. The graphics are a mixture of semi-realistic environments and cel shading to give the characters a sleek anime-styled look. This brings the game closer to the visuals of games like Dragon Ball FighterZ. The trailer starts off with classic anime rivals Goku and Vegeta clashing in the canyons, using a mixture of physical attacks and key attacks, like the classic Kamehameha and Gallic Gun. From there, Goku and Vegeta are shown transforming in the middle of battle to their Super Saiyan Blue states, while also charging up their ultimate attacks. After both beams are fired, it then shows off some other playable characters, including the Galactic Tyrant Frieza and the Dragon Ball Super version of Broly. Planet Namek is briefly shown as a stage, along with a destroyed version of the planet. The trailer also shows some of the moves of Broly and Frieza, such as Broly throwing Goku around like a rag doll, along with him being able to transform into a Super Saiyan. The end of this Dragon Ball Sparking Zero trailer confirms a number of other characters in the game, including Krillin, Piccolo, Tien, Android 18, Mr. Satan, and even characters from Dragon Ball Super like Jiren and Bergamo. In an interview with IGN, Furitani states that he felt it was a perfect time for the Budokai Tenkaichi series to make a return, wanting to deliver an evolved Dragon Ball experience on next-gen systems. This was inspired from his time observing the Dragon Ball FighterZ competitive scene, where players enjoyed recreating iconic Dragon Ball battles. As such, he wanted players of Sparking Zero to have a similar experience. The focus here is to push the limits of how much a player can completely immerse themselves into the world and how intensely we can make that happen, says Furitani. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero being inspired by FighterZ isn't likely to be a surprise, considering how the game is taking on a much sleeker anime-styled look that resembles Arc System Works' game. Furitani explains that during the game's 5-year development period, the developers decided on using Unreal Engine 5 to allow for greater immersion and graphical detail. He cites one example, where characters that collide through mountains or boulders after being attacked are rendered in real time, which fans can see in action by looking at how the environment reacts in the announcement trailer. Furitani also explains why the game is titled Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, which is what the Budokai Tenkaichi series is called in Japan. He notes that while the Zero subtitle might make it seem like the game is a reboot of the series, the title is instead meant to embody this new entry being an accessible starting point for newcomers. During the IGN interview, Furitani beckoned fans to look forward to more details about the game in the future. When the first Budokai Tenkaichi released in 2005, it was actually titled Dragon Ball Z Sparking in Japan first. The popular sequels that followed weren't even numbered entries under their original names, known as Sparking Neo and Sparking Meteor. Twitter user DBS Hype, a leaker who covers all sorts of Dragon Ball-related content, says the roster size is huge and will be one of the biggest fans we'll ever see. In particular, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero will contain fighters from the original Dragon Ball to the upcoming Dragon Ball Daima show that was revealed in October. Daima features younger versions of the main characters and a brand new set of villains, specifically a wizard associated with Babidi from Z's Majin Buu saga. Characters from the Dragon Ball GT sequel series will also be featured on the roster. According to Hype, this was based on his source who confirmed the roster from a month ago. If what Hype says is true, then Sparking Zero's roster could surpass the record for most playable characters in a Dragon Ball game, previously set by Budokai Tenkaichi 3. Similar to Sparking Zero, Budokai Tenkaichi 3 had pulled characters from all corners of the Dragon Ball mythos to include on its roster, including Aral from Dr. Slump, movie-exclusive villains like Dr. Wheelo, and even the original Dragon Ball such as a young version of Chi-Chi. Revealed at the Game Awards 2023 in a gameplay trailer, Sparking Zero has already offered fans a glimpse into its new systems. While the unveiling of new updates to the Tenkaichi roster from Dragon Ball Super was likely the most hype moment of the showcase, one aspect of the combat stood out as particularly innovative for the franchise. In a battle between Vegeta and Goku, the two are shown to be causing damage to their surroundings in an unprecedented way. A massive rock formation is destroyed on impact when Goku is launched toward it, and the ground itself is raised by blasts of energy. While it has maintained interest since its release back in 2007, Budokai Tenkaichi 3 is still ultimately limited by its age. Despite being a faithful adaptation of Dragon Ball Z in most possible ways, it still couldn't necessarily capture the damage that some of the series' battles have caused to their surrounding environments. It's likely that fans would enjoy a new Tenkaichi title if it were simply an update to the series without such a dramatic addition. But the inclusion of stage destructibles shows that there could be more innovation than expected at work in Sparking Zero. If nothing else, environmental destruction on this scale could be visually epic. There are many examples of modern games being teased and slowly showcased ahead of their releases, but Sparking Zero boldly subverted this with its first trailer. Over 15 characters have been confirmed, and its gameplay emphasized the new environmental damage system specifically. While it's unknown how important this mechanic will be to the actual combat or how immersive and frequent, it also seems as though Spike Chunsoft is focused on recapturing the feeling of the previous games in a way that is certain to set the latest Tenkaichi apart from FighterZ. Sparking Zero also confirmed that it will be developed for PS5, Xbox, and PC via Steam. No release window has been provided for this game yet, but what has been shown so far has excited fans. Fans of dinosaurs and survival horror got a treat at this year's Game Awards with the announcement of Jurassic Park Survival. The annual awards show for the gaming industry is always a big event and often a place for developers and publishers to make big announcements and reveals. This year has been no different, with news like the free God of War Ragnarok DLC being broken at the event. Fans of the classic dinosaur adventure series, however, likely weren't expecting any news this year. There hasn't been a new game from the franchise since Jurassic Park Aftermath in 2020, and many observers have argued that Jurassic World Dominion symbolized the death of the series. Based on this new announcement, though, predictions of the end of Jurassic Park may be premature. During the 2023 Game Awards, fans got to watch the reveal trailer for Jurassic Park Survival. Set in the immediate aftermath of the original Jurassic Park film, players will take on the role of Dr. Mei Joshi, a scientist left behind when the characters from the movie escaped. The trailer mostly contains pre-rendered footage but, based on the few moments of alpha gameplay, the title looks to feature first-person gameplay with a survival horror vibe. While brief, the trailer does do an excellent job of highlighting iconic locations from the original movie and paying homage to some of the most exciting moments. A spitting Dilophosaurus, a leaping Velociraptor, and a roaring T-Rex all make appearances, and the title's website certainly emphasizes the game's ties to the first movie. With the recent entries struggling and the original topping the list of iconic movies that are turning 30 this year, it makes sense that developer Saber Interactive would want to cash in on that classic nostalgia. Jurassic Park video game adaptations of licensed movie franchises aren't a new thing, especially within this specific franchise. However, with the hardware and standards of the current and future generations of gaming consoles, the sky is the limit at this point in the industry. Unlike most of the previously released Jurassic Park video game adaptations, none of them seem to wear the film franchise's history on their shoulders quite as proudly as Jurassic Park Survival. From the brief reveal trailer shown off at the 2023 Game Awards, some of the iconic scenes, locations, and other references from the classic Jurassic Park movies are immediately recognizable to familiar fans. Between the movie's presence in the game and the ambitious nature of a survival game set in the Jurassic Park universe, Jurassic Park Survival could be one of the best video game adaptations that gamers have seen in a long time. The last time gamers saw this level of dedication to a film's source material was arguably from Alien Isolation. Despite being almost 10 years old by now, Alien Isolation was a major release that still merits praise to this day because of the beloved nostalgia that it carried into the gaming genre from its fan-favorite film franchise. While recently plenty of film and TV adaptations of video games have become a hot topic, it's been a while since things were the other way around. There have been plenty of adaptations since Alien Isolation's release in 2014, but nothing quite compares to this game's success and impact on the gaming industry. Assuming that Jurassic Park Survival lives up to the hype that has already been stirred from its reveal trailer from the 2023 Game Awards, it might be time for other classic films to get the opportunity of a video game adaptation. Capcom's Dino Crisis was one of the earlier series to also feature the terrifying beasts. While not as popular as either Jurassic Park or Capcom's flagship Resident Evil franchise, the games still hold a place in many players' hearts and minds as excellent survival horror experiences. However, the series hasn't had much of a presence in gaming for nearly 30 years. Now, Jurassic Park Survival could be set to take Dino Crisis' place in the food chain of dinosaur games. Dino Crisis was essentially Resident Evil, but with dinosaurs. As Capcom developed both concurrently, they resembled each other closely in design and gameplay. The first Dino Crisis released in 1999, the same year as Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. DC-1 was generally well received, though overshadowed by Resident Evil's status as the premier survivor horror series. Several more Dino Crisis games followed, each being regarded as increasingly inferior in quality, until the series slid into obscurity by the time of the third and final entry in 2003, lying dormant since. However, interest in Dino Crisis still persisted, with fans inquiring regularly about the possibility of it receiving the same treatment as the recent Resident Evil remakes. This was usually met with vague and non-committal responses from Capcom, and nothing substantial regarding it has materialized. With Capcom enjoying the enormous success of the RE remakes, as well as focusing on the next entries, it seems unlikely at this point the developer will turn its attention to the Dino Crisis franchise, even if it had the desire to, and would be well received by the fans who continue to request it. Dino Crisis is becoming more of a fossil with each passing year. Though titles like Ark Survival Ascended and even Capcom's own recent online co-op shooter Exoprimal are dinosaur-centric, they aren't pure survival horror, and thus don't provide as intense an experience. Jurassic Park games themselves also vary in quality, and have never really attempted true survival horror. Jurassic Park Survival, though, could be shaping up to be exactly the kind of game to fill the void left by Dino Crisis in the genre. From the aspects seen so far, fans of the original titles wanting a modern Dino Crisis-style experience have good reason to be excited about Jurassic Park Survival. Earlier this year, it was announced that a collection classic games from the series are being released and, back in September, it was revealed that even more beloved Jurassic Park games are returning with that collection. With Dino Crisis remakes or remasters not currently looking to be happening anytime soon, Jurassic Park Survival might be the next best thing, serving as a spiritual successor to scratch that particular itch. At the Game Awards 2023, Ikumi Nakamura appeared on stage to introduce her studio's first project, Kemuri. Unfortunately, the announcement didn't come with a gameplay reveal, but we at least got a cinematic trailer that marketed the general vibe of the upcoming game. In the cinematic, you can see a vibrant world that features plenty of Japanese imagery and pop culture as well as colorful characters who are all quite skilled at parkour. The game looks far less spooky than Nakamura's previous work, which includes the likes of The Evil Within and Ghostwire, Tokyo, but still pretty cool. Nakamura first announced her studio, Unseen, in March 2022. In an interview with IGN, Nakamura said the studio features a mix of cultures and would act as a breeding ground for new ideas. Oddly enough, in that same interview, Nakamura says that her interests lie in mystery, horror films, zombies, the supernatural, and science fiction, so she'd likely keep working within those genres. It really is closer to the occult phenomenon, but maybe the studio is still keeping the full scope of the game's themes close to the chest. Upstart studio Lightspeed LA has revealed its first major title, Last Sentinel, a slick cyberpunk-themed open-world game. The game was announced via a cinematic trailer during this year's Game Awards. It's being developed by Lightspeed LA, the California branch of one of Chinese giant Tencent's game development division's Lightspeed Studios, which is headed by game industry veteran Steve C. Martin. Martin has over 25 years of experience handling AAA titles, including Grand Theft Auto V, Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2, Need for Speed Underground 1 and 2, and Bully. The Lightspeed LA team itself has members who have worked on games such as God of War, The Last of Us, Uncharted, and Jedi Fallen Order, to name a few. Tencent has been pretty aggressive within the game industry as of late, and Last Sentinel could be one of its biggest pushes in the mainstream. Last Sentinel's almost 2-minute trailer gives a good glimpse of what the game is about. Set in a dystopian future version of Tokyo, a group of menacing robots surround and try to force their way into what looks like an orphanage tended by more human-like androids. As the invaders almost get through, another woman referred to as the Demon by one of the nanny androids, and who appears to be the game's protagonist Hiromi Shoto appears and guns them down to save the children, leading them into the rainy night. Last Sentinel was reported to be in development back in January 2022 as a cinematic open-world game and original IP, though after 2 years, there's still not much to say and glean from this first look. For what it's worth, Lightspeed LA said that the game will feature a unique cast, environment, story, and gameplay experience. It's tough to judge anything about the title, other than drawing obvious comparisons to other cyberpunk genre games like Cyberpunk 2077 or Deus Ex for the open-world elements and the look and feel of the game's universe. And Last Sentinel may be coming at a great time, too. With CD Projekt Red reportedly done working on any new Cyberpunk 2077 content, fans of the genre may soon find themselves itching for a new take on the popular category. Lightspeed LA hasn't yet announced a release date for this, but a good bet could be the first half of 2025 at the latest. Don't Nod announced its next adventure game at the Game Awards, which is called Lost Records Bloom and Rage. The debut trailer teased a story of 4 90s teens who discover some weird alien, magical, stuff in the woods, and a meeting they have 27 years in the future. Lost Record is in fact a story-driven journey through time, according to Don't Nod's trailer description, so it sounds like it'll be loosely in the vein of the Life is Strange series. Here's a bit more about the game's premise. The magical summer of 1995 is one of self-discovery and forging unbreakable bonds for high school friends Swan, Nora, Autumn, and Kat. 27 years of no contact later, fate reunites them to confront the long-buried secret that made them promise to never speak again. Intriguing stuff, and a talented team, one to keep an eye on. Arkane Lion, the studio behind Dishonored and Deathloop, is making a single-player Blade video game. Prior to the Game Awards 2023, there were plenty of rumors and leaks about what would be shown at the event. One of the biggest leaks suggested that Arkane Studios would have a new game to show, with many speculating about what Arkane's next game could possibly be. The leading theory was that Arkane was going to announce Dishonored 3 at the Game Awards. After all, Dishonored 3's existence has already been leaked, and so one has to imagine that a reveal is just a matter of time. Others speculated that Arkane would announce a Deathloop sequel or perhaps a follow-up to its popular 2017 Prey game. While many fans had theories about what Arkane would announce at the Game Awards 2023, it's safe to say no one expected Arkane to announce a Blade video game. Blade is described as a mature, single-player, third-person game, which is quite the surprise considering Arkane has primarily made first-person games. Made in part to celebrate Blade's 50th anniversary, the Blade game from Arkane will feature an original story and be set in a Paris being ravaged by vampires. It has yet to be confirmed if Blade will be Xbox exclusive or if it will debut as a Day 1 Game Pass game, but since it's being made by Arkane and published by Bethesda, one has to imagine that is a distinct possibility. If Blade is an Xbox exclusive game, it will mean that Xbox and PlayStation each have their own exclusive Marvel Comics games. On the PlayStation side, there's Spider-Man and the upcoming Wolverine game, while Xbox will potentially have Blade. However, the decision not to mention Game Pass or Xbox at all in the Blade announcement leaves the door open for the project to be multi-platform despite coming from an Xbox-owned studio. VG247 reached out to Bethesda to get clarification on the matter, but apparently it declined to comment on whether Blade is an Xbox exclusive or not. Whether this will actually end up happening is entirely up to Bethesda, Axios' Stephen Totilo reports, citing a statement from a Disney representative. The recent legal drama surrounding the now-completed Activision Blizzard acquisition revealed that Bethesda itself is sometimes confused with Microsoft's platform strategy. So, while it remains to be seen whether Marvel's Blade ends up coming to PlayStation, it is plausible that not even Bethesda can answer that question right now. But if Microsoft's track record is any indication, Arkane Studios' upcoming title does have all the makings of an Xbox console exclusive. This is Arkane Lion making the game who made Deathloop, not Arkane Austin who made Redfall, but Arkane also assisted with the level design and progressions for Redfall, so I'm a little skeptical. Microsoft appealed the Indiana Jones multiplat decision from Disney and made it exclusive. So, a similar thing might happen here, but Marvel may have strict expectations. Some of the recent Insomniac leak shed some more light on licensing agreements between Marvel and PlayStation, so this exclusivity topic will continue in my next video. Marvel's Blade has already been in production for nearly 2 years, which is significantly longer than its reveal trailer implied, according to some newly emerged evidence. This development also adds more context to the confusion surrounding Marvel's Blade target platforms, as the questions concerning its potential exclusivity are directly tied to the current status of the project. According to the LinkedIn profile of Arkane Studios campaign director Dana Nightingale, she has been working as the principal designer of the Marvel's Blade campaign since January 2022. Given her current role and overall seniority at the company, it stands to reason that she has been involved in the project since its inception. This turn of events also casts a lot of doubt on the theory that Arkane's next title could miss the current console generation. Potentially the biggest challenge that Arkane's Blade is going to face is the characterization of its titular vampire hunter. At the end of last year, Marvel's Midnight Suns was released. Though it wasn't the commercial hit that Take-Two was hoping for, Midnight Suns still reviewed very well, and for good reason. While Midnight Suns' unique card-centered turn-based combat gameplay is great, it's Midnight Suns' characters that really shine through the entire experience, with Blade being a particular highlight. One of the primary members of the titular Midnight Suns, Blade quickly becomes a fan-favorite character in Firaxis' Marvel strategy game, both in terms of gameplay and characterization. Voiced by Michael Jai White, Marvel's Midnight Suns Blade sounds and looks exactly how he'd be expected to, though while he maintains a stoic demeanor throughout. It's his little moments of vulnerability and levity that make him such an endearing version of the vampire hunter. Gameplay-wise, Marvel's Midnight Suns Blade is an indispensable member of the team. With plenty of quick attacks and hard-hitting heroic cards, Blade is easily one of Midnight Suns' best fighters. With his ability to lifesteal and apply the bleed status effect, each attack becomes invaluable later on in the game. While Captain Marvel can tank attacks and Doctor Strange can provide support, Blade's primary role is dishing out as much damage as he can, all while looking after himself at the same time. With no release window currently confirmed, it's unclear just how far away Marvel's Blade is. Therefore, it's not out of the realm of possibility that it could launch after the MCU Blade movie in November 2025. Though it keeps facing some pretty major setbacks, Blade is still one of the most exciting MCU projects in the pipeline, with Mahershala Ali already being viewed as the perfect casting for the hero. By the time Marvel's Blade comes out, many Marvel fans will already likely have their own favorite version of Blade, whether it's the one from Midnight Suns, Mahershala Ali's, or even the classic Wesley Snipes version. Arkane's going to have to do something really special to make its own version of the Daywalker stand out, whether it's giving the hero some never-before-seen abilities, or really honing in on the character's unique personality traits. Redfall-related blunders aside, Arkane Studios is renowned within the games industry for its instantly recognizable, immersive sim gameplay, which will hopefully appear in Blade. Notably, Blade is a character who has not made many appearances in the world of gaming, with his last standalone game being a PS2 tie-in for the movie Blade 2. Because the Blade franchise doesn't have much of a footprint in gaming, the possibilities for Marvel's Blade seem virtually endless, and it will be interesting to see how Arkane translates its iconic, emergent gameplay systems to this mostly untouched gaming IP. Arkane tackling another vampire game might seem like a bad omen, but it's likely that Blade will have very little in common with Redfall beyond a few key elements of its vampiric lore. There's plenty that can be assumed or inferred about Marvel's Blade, especially when considering the titular character's established personality and his penchant for cool-headed, straightforward problem-solving. It's likely that players will have access to both melee and ranged combat, leveraging Blade's martial arts skills and superhuman strength to take down foes. As far as concrete, confirmed details are concerned, though, there are just a few pieces of info to dissect. Arkane has visited many different settings, from the subarctic islands of Black Reef in Deathloop to the spacefaring supership Talos 1 in Prey, but Blade looks to be going in a slightly different direction. Set in a fictionalized version of Paris, Blade seems to be taking a more grounded approach to its environment design, compared to the striking industrialism of Dunwall or the funky 1960s-infused streets of Black Reef. This real-world city will be the backdrop for Blade's story, which is being described as mature by Arkane developers. Although Arkane managed to put out a rather well-received multiplayer feature in Deathloop, the developer's stumbles with Redfall suggest that it may be better suited to single-player games, at least for the time being. Those disappointed by Arkane's last vampire-laden outing will be happy to learn that Marvel's Blade is set to be a single-player experience. One of the most surprising pieces of information revealed about Blade is the fact that Arkane is developing it as a third-person game. This will be the first third-person game from the developer, whose immersive sims have, up to this point, followed genre convention by adopting a first-person perspective. This could very well be the best choice for the game, as Blade's acrobatic and agile nature would probably feel better to play from a third-person perspective, as is typically the case for action games. Either way, this shift could offer a new take on Arkane's classic gameplay staples and an exciting prospect for fans of the studio. There are still plenty of questions surrounding Marvel's Blade. Though Arkane has described it as an immersive sim, the company's reluctance to fully embrace that genre with Redfall and, arguably, Deathloop, raises some questions about this description. Additionally, Arkane suffered from a significant loss of staff during Redfall's development, potentially throwing a wrench into the development of Blade. That said, with Arkane's pedigree and talent for single-player games, Marvel's Blade has a good chance of being, at the very least, an interesting experience. Marvel's Blade has a chance to make good on the vampire hunting gameplay potential that Redfall had. Part of the success of Marvel's Blade hinges on the game's villains, and the hero has several foes from the comics that would make great antagonists in this game. While it's unlikely that Lilith herself would be the main antagonist of Marvel's Blade given her recent role in Marvel's Midnight Suns and rumored role in the MCU Blade movie, one of her Liline could appear as a foe for Blade in this game. Blackout is typically known as an enemy of Ghost Rider, but he has had run-ins with the Daywalker as well. Given that he is a former member of Hydra's Department of Occult Armaments who has done battle with the Midnight Suns, Blackout also bears a stylish outfit that could fit perfectly within Arkane's version of a vampire-infested Paris. Frost is a pivotal character in Blade's life as he is responsible for the death of Blade's mother and his acquisition of vampiric powers. While Blade's mother was experiencing complications during his birth, Deacon Frost was the doctor who helped ensure Blade was delivered safely. But his true nature as a vampire led him to feast on Blade's mother during the birth, which transferred some of his vampiric enzymes to the baby to create a half-vampire, half-human child. Having become the Daywalker, Blade has sought vengeance against his progenitor, and Marvel's Blade could explore this story. Another key figure in Blade's life is his biological father, Lucas Cross, who could play the role of a complicated antagonist in Marvel's Blade. In the comics, Lucas Cross, dying from cancer, sends Blade's mother to Deacon Frost for help with the complications surrounding her pregnancy before being taken prisoner in Latveria for a crime he didn't commit. In his desperation to survive, he allowed himself to be transformed into a vampire, later seeking out Blade to join him among his vampire kin. Morbius has become one of Marvel's most infamous vampires in recent years due to the memes surrounding the film. However, Morbius is a major villain in Blade's rogues gallery who could also have a complex role in Marvel's Blade. The two have been both allies and foes at different times, with Blade initially hunting Morbius, but later sympathizing with his condition and working together within the Midnight Suns. The most powerful and iconic vampire in the Marvel Universe is Dracula, who also happens to be Blade's arch-nemesis. There is a lot of history between these two that could be explored in Marvel's Blade, like how Dracula killed Blade's mentor and surrogate father, Jamal Afari, setting the Daywalker on a quest for revenge. Dracula even has a history within the city of Paris, potentially setting him up to play a major role in Arkane's upcoming title. Another big mystery of Marvel's Blade is the hero's potential arsenal. Right at the end of Marvel's Blade reveal trailer, fans can spot a few of the hero's gadgets and weapons, including his trusty sword, a revolver, some grenades, and what looks to be a set of ornate stakes. But while that's a great start, Blade is a character who's always over-equipped in the comics, and there are a handful of trademark vampire-slaying weapons that he still needs in Marvel's Blade. You can't have Blade without his signature sword, and Marvel's Blade seems to have understood the assignment perfectly. While fans only get an extremely brief glimpse of it during the reveal trailer, it seems likely that Blade's sword will be his main weapon of choice in Arkane's third-person action game, though it's still unclear just which version of the sword it is going to be. Blade had many different swords over the years, from katanas to rapiers to longswords and a good few in between. But the vast majority of these swords are made from titanium, with an acid etching on the blade, something that fans will probably expect to be mentioned at least once in Marvel's Blade. Another iconic Blade weapon is his throwing glaive, a boomerang-like weapon that usually takes the form of two arched blades that meet in the middle. A glaive isn't always associated with the character of Blade, though some of his most iconic appearances see him wielding, such as in the Wesley Snipes-led Blade movies, and the recent Marvel's Midnight Suns strategy game. Almost every iteration of Blade over the last 5 decades has wielded some kind of ranged weapon. More often than not, these ranged weapons tend to be automatic machine pistols, usually modeled after the MAC-10 or Uzi guns. While Marvel's Blade's trailer seems to show the hero wielding a revolver, it might be more in keeping with the character's history if players get to wield some machine pistols later on in the game, or at least upgrade their revolver to the point where it becomes automatic. A staple of any vampire hunter, a set of wooden stakes is on Blade's person at all times. Designed to deliver the final blow to a vampire, it would sense for stakes to be reserved for some kind of finishing move in Marvel's Blade. Maybe limiting the player to having just a handful at any one time and encouraging some strategy from the player on when they should use them in battle. By far one of Blade's coolest weapons from the lore, Marvel's Blade should give players some UV grenades. Functioning exactly like anyone would expect, Blade's UV grenades emit an incredibly bright UV light that turns vampires to ash instantly. Obviously, Marvel's Blade would have to limit the number of UV grenades the player can carry at one time, but they should still be given as a way to take down big hordes of vampires at once. The freshly announced Marvel's Blade game from Bethesda's Arkane Studios has released a set of intriguing concept art images. One of the biggest announcements to come out of the 2023 Game Awards, the stylish 1-minute trailer for Marvel's Blade made a huge splash at the show, as the popular vampire hunter will mark Bethesda's first ever Marvel project. On Twitter, one of the creative directors of Marvel's Blade at Arkane Lion, Sebastian Mitten, has posted a series of 3 concept art images presumably from earlier in the game's development. The art, which exudes Arkane's signature style, focuses on the game's setting of Paris, with the first image showing Blade standing atop a building looking down on the pandemonium of the city streets. The second image shows Blade lurking in the shadows at street level, peeking around an alley corner at the front of a neon-lit nightclub. Finally, the third piece frames Blade through the window of a subway car as he raises his sword while swarmed by bats. It seems the Paris setting of Marvel's Blade will be a somewhat futuristic one, as the first image depicts several large airships hovering above the city's rooftops. The scene should be a familiar one for fans of Arkane's Dishonored titles, which also feature European-style rooftops with imposing mechanical threats looming like the Tallboys or Clockwork Soldiers. These concept art images, with one of them taking place on a rooftop and another on street level, seem to suggest that players will be able to vertically traverse Paris smoothly, as was a staple of Dishonored and Deathloop's gameplay. Arkane's Dishonored and Deathloop are instantly noticeable by their artwork alone. Dishonored's distinguished period piece aesthetic is bolstered by the fact that each environment and character looks like an oil painting, while Deathloop takes a more modern approach to that same art style, blending countless inspirations. Arkane is now demonstrating a superior adaptability with how it is choosing to tackle Marvel's Blade illustrative and impressionistic yet again. This art direction is a wonderful punch of style befitting of a notoriously stylish Marvel icon. The game's Paris setting will allow for a lot of diverse creativity as well, as seen in how Arkane has gone about the city's architecture, graffiti, and futuristic tones to make Marvel's Blade distinct and true to its beloved mixture of artistic influences. If Marvel's Blade was being developed by any other studio, it may have leaned into a relatively basic hyperrealism approach like other superhero games tend to. But knowing now that Arkane's signature flavor will permeate every design choice of Marvel's Blade makes its dystopian, vampire-ridden Paris setting far more arresting. Thankfully, along with the brief announcement trailer, Arkane has also recently shared a few pieces of Marvel's Blade concept art that express more of the atmosphere and artwork players can expect to see in-game. I was concerned with the art style first based on the reveal trailer, but the concept art provided some confidence. This paints a clearer picture of the state that Paris is in, where there is some sort of vampire occupancy and perhaps a curfew in the city before vampires come out at night, with Marvel's Eric Brooks being able to uniquely navigate Paris regardless of whether it's day or night. This look also seems to lean more toward Deathloop than Dishonored, and it's authentic enough to drastically set it apart from any other Marvel game before it in the best way possible, especially with its source material being a stylized, horror-oriented comic book. It could be a blessing and a curse. Depending on whether Marvel's Blade targets a 2025 release, the year could end up being huge for Blade fans given there is now a game and a film starring the hero in the works. While the MCU Blade film has a release date slated for November 7, 2025, controversy around the movie's script and the production delays caused by the WGA writers' strike could end up pushing its release date further back. However, it would be a huge missed opportunity for Marvel not to coordinate the release of Arkane's upcoming game with the release of the Blade film. Although it's unlikely that the two games would directly tie into each other story-wise, given that Arkane seems to be putting its own unique twist on the character, there is a lot of potential for references between the two pieces of media if they are released concurrently. Spider-Man fans saw both a film and game release in 2023, those being Sony's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and Insomniac's Spider-Man 2, and there were some clear references to the film in Spider-Man 2 via the Spider-Bot side quest. Marvel's Blade could do something similar with the MCU film if the two time their release dates correctly. There could be some stiff competition for Marvel's Blade in 2025 as well, with recent leaks suggesting Insomniac's Wolverine game is also targeting a release that year. While Marvel fans will have two titles to look forward to, others might be less receptive to multiple superhero games being released so close to each other. Correlation with the movie release will bump up the sales of the game. Atlus and the team behind some of the most recent Persona games have given fans a look at their brand new title Metaphor Refantazio during the Game Awards 2023, showing off some of the title's gameplay and story elements. While Persona fans will have another game to look forward to during the wait for Persona 6, Metaphor Refantazio may also fill the void left by another JRPG franchise. Fans of Final Fantasy XVI should be excited about Metaphor Refantazio as it seems to blend many of the elements that made the Square Enix title popular with more traditional JRPG conventions. Although Metaphor Refantazio was first unveiled at the Xbox Showcase in June 2023, the recent Game Awards trailer highlighted even more details about the game for players to get excited about. It's clear that a lot of Persona's DNA is baked into the gameplay and visuals of Metaphor Refantazio, but there are also a handful of new elements that help the game distinguish itself from Atlus' other titles. The combination of gameplay elements in Metaphor Refantazio not only presents the opportunity for a new JRPG experience but could also help continue the legacy of Final Fantasy XVI. From what has been shown of Metaphor Refantazio, it appears to be combining elements of traditional, turn-based JRPG gameplay with action combat. Atlus is no stranger to these gameplay styles, with the Persona series utilizing the classic JRPG turn-based gameplay since its inception. And a title like Persona 5 Strikers meshing hack-and-slash-action combat with the series' iconic mechanics. With this pedigree of games under their belt, JRPG fans should be excited about what kind of experience Atlus can deliver with a game like Metaphor Refantazio. Despite the debate among genre fans between action and turn-based combat in JRPGs, Final Fantasy XVI's fully action-based combat delivered a fast-paced and satisfying experience for players. While this gameplay hit all the right notes for some, others believed Final Fantasy XVI had shed the series' longtime identity with the transition to action combat. However, the combination of both types of gameplay may mean that players will get the best of both worlds with Metaphor Refantazio, potentially giving players who were disappointed by Final Fantasy XVI's gameplay the kind of game they've been hoping for. The style of combat present in Final Fantasy XVI allowed players to experience a Final Fantasy game like never before, trading turn-based strategy for views of fantastical set pieces amid the combos of its breakneck action gameplay. While many players have looked for games like Final Fantasy XVI to replicate the same feeling its action-packed combat gave them, Metaphor Refantazio might finally be the game that delivers on that desire. It's not clear yet just how the game's combat will be split between action and turn-based segments, but it could potentially give Final Fantasy XVI a run for its money. The action segments of Metaphor Refantazio look like they could pack the same punch as Final Fantasy XVI's combat with the flourish of Persona 5's visual style. This action-based gameplay could scratch the itch created by Final Fantasy XVI for fans of its combat, while the turn-based gameplay should satisfy fans of the classic JRPG combat that was missing from Final Fantasy XVI. As more information comes out about Metaphor Refantazio, it will likely become clear just how these two styles of combat will intertwine, likely demonstrating just how the game can satisfy fans of both the Persona series and Final Fantasy XVI. As shown in its trailers, Metaphor Refantazio will benefit from 2D, animated cutscenes just like several Persona titles before it. The Persona 5 games in particular not only use animated intros, but also scattered animated cutscenes to punctuate big moments, something it and Metaphor should already have in common. With other big-budget JRPG franchises like Tales increasingly mixing anime cutscenes with regular ones, it's not a surprise to see one of their pioneers continue their use. Especially as Metaphor's 3D scenes increasingly resemble their anime counterparts. However, Metaphor Refantazio isn't content with just following trends. The full extent of its visual flourishes aren't visible yet, but compared to Persona 5, one improvement in Metaphor Refantazio's maximalist UI is more than meets the eye. After successfully landing a combo on a field enemy and transitioning into turn-based combat, what could be the graphic for Metaphor's all-out attack appears. Enemies are left damaged and stunned, but of visual interest is the cutscene's 2D animated nature. Quick anime cutscenes like these probably exist for every party member, and there could be other instances where the game flits in and out of 2D animation during combat. All of this forms the next step in Persona's visual design, and isn't the only novel thing Metaphor is doing with its anime aesthetic. Specifically, by looking so much like Persona or Shin Megami Tensei while simultaneously being so different from them, Metaphor Refantazio is subverting its anime stylings. It takes place in an alien yet active society, and tells tales of personal, political, and planetary intrigue with similar gravitas. As even Shin Megami Tensei 5 grounds itself with a high school backdrop amid its blasted wastelands, it doesn't take long to see that, for all that metaphor shares with its predecessors, they don't conform to the same style of JRPG. In truth, the typical anime aesthetic one would expect from a Japanese RPG, or even a traditional fantasy anime, is barely present in metaphor. The modern-day cities filled with fantasy races, massive mechanical vehicles, and utterly bizarre monsters seen in metaphor Refantazio speak to a magical and political world that, while populated by characters with anime facial shapes, does not conform to an established anime meta. It's rare to see a big-budget video game push the boundaries of genres or other art forms like metaphor Refantazio. But that should only draw in more players to see what this stylish and innovative game has in store. Within the world of metaphor Refantazio, there are clear class distinctions based on who has the ability to use magic and who doesn't. According to the game's developers, magic exists in this world and can be controlled by one's imagination, but the ability to use it has been forgotten by the general population. Instead, individuals who can afford to use special tools to channel magic have the advantage in society. Meaning the wealthy nobility have a distinct influence over those who lack the means to use magic, which could allow them to sway the election at the heart of metaphor Refantazio's story in their favor. However, the main party members of metaphor Refantazio are said to be called archetypes, or individuals who can awaken to their potential to transform into magical weapons. The developers describe these archetypes as individuals who embody the traits of typical fantasy classes like a knight or warrior, who can then transform into their archetype once they awaken to this knowledge. From this description, the awakening of an archetype sounds very similar to the Persona series, where characters can awaken to their powers as Persona users once they discover or address a core part of their identity. In the Persona series, party members aside from the protagonist typically can only use one persona, giving them access to a single defined role within the team. However, from what can be seen from metaphor Refantazio's deep dive trailer, party members seem to be able to take on multiple archetypes, with one character shown to be what looks like a healer in one scene, but a fighter or knight in another. This could mean that archetypes function more like a job system, which is a classic JRPG mechanic that would give players more flexibility in building their party than a game like Persona 5 allows. While the explanation given by the developers makes it seem like not all characters will have access to every archetype, there seems to be enough variety to keep gameplay interesting and parties unique. It's also not clear how elemental magic will play into the archetype system, but it seems likely that metaphor Refantazio will feature this type of magic in some way, given Atlus' extensive use of elemental damage in previous titles. Archetypes may also function like personas in that they only become apparent once in turn-based combat, so it will be interesting to see how the archetype system comes into play during metaphor Refantazio's action combat segments. A recent tweet from the Japanese studio delved a bit deeper into how metaphor Refantazio is meant to fit into its acclaimed portfolio. The company described the upcoming game as a fantasy drama that will make good use of its fantastical medieval world in order to tell a story that would not have been possible in a modern setting. Although that makes it inherently different from most of the developers' previous games, the JRPG is still being created with the same mindset as Persona 5. In that it will aim to deliver a completely unique experience, according to a translation of the tweet authored by Atlus insider Midori. Although the recent Game Awards trailer for metaphor Refantazio was brief, a recent video on Atlus' YouTube channel has given a more in-depth explanation as to some of the story and gameplay elements players can expect to see. In this video, the developers highlight the story at the center of metaphor Refantazio and how it will tackle some of the same political themes as Persona 5. While other gameplay elements like the calendar system and the use of persona-like archetypes that characters will awaken to, there are clear connecting themes between its story and that of Persona 5. According to this video, the story of metaphor Refantazio will take place in a medieval fantasy land where the king has been murdered, and a spell has been cast that allows citizens to select their most popular choice for the kingdom's next ruler. This new electoral system causes many potential rulers and nobles to exert their influence in controlling the outcome of this political campaign. In response, the player and their party travel around the kingdom attempting to gather electoral support, but are limited by the calendar system which is counting down towards election day. From this plot overview, there are some clear parallels to Persona 5 and its view of modern-day politics and corruption. Like Persona 5, it sounds like Metaphor Refantazio players will face a cast of villains who are corrupt nobles seeking to rig the election in their favor. Additionally, a major theme of Persona 5 is fighting back against societal complacency, which was caused by Yaldabaoth, the god of control. And Metaphor Refantazio's quest to build political support from around the land mirrors this struggle from the perspective of a medieval kingdom. Despite having a medieval fantasy setting, Metaphor Refantazio opts for themes related to the flaws of modern electoral systems in a subversion of the usual style of corruption associated with kingdoms. This plot gives the game a clear parallel to Persona 5 while still being its own separate story, creating the best of both worlds for fans of Persona 5 and those looking for something totally new. As more information is revealed about Metaphor Refantazio leading up to its release, the political connections to Persona 5 will likely become even clearer. Though Metaphor Refantazio gives a sense of its distinct personality, it's clear that its combat takes inspiration from past SMT and Persona titles. Interestingly, the title looks to include a bit of real-time combat among its turn-based offerings, with a closer examination of its UI suggesting a nuanced approach to the latter. Metaphor will include archetypes for its characters, a concept comparable in presentation to personas, though it looks like the boundaries of these archetypes will be able to be broken. Similar to the job system of Final Fantasy X-2, it appears that Metaphor's characters will be able to switch between archetype classes, demonstrating that they aren't locked into one designation. A look at the game's HUD shows that the MC can use the Seeker archetype, likely their starting class, though another shot from the trailer shows this change to Brawler. Interestingly, this also affects the archetype portrait shown beside the character, as well as different health and SP values, suggesting that each archetype will have different level-up allotments. Though something like the wildcard ability was exclusive to the protagonists of Persona 3, 4, and 5, it looks like swapping between archetypes won't just be for the MC. A red-haired character on the team shows her designation change from healer to knight, implying that this versatility will extend to the party. A glimpse of dialogue between the MC and a character named Juna mentions that she was able to awaken to her archetype, much like awakening to a persona. Which is an interesting notion if characters can switch between archetypes. Given the definition of the word archetype, this seems to imply that Metaphor's characters are able to break down the preconceived notions of their specialties. With a character who might look like a healer given the ability to change to a more attack-focused class like a brawler or warrior. It could be likely that each character will bring a distinct ability to their version of an archetype that helps differentiate movesets among characters. There's a lot of interesting detail to Metaphor's combat HUD. First, it looks like the press turn system will be making a comeback, as seen in titles like SMT3 Nocturne and, more recently, SMT5. Which would make sense given director Katsura Hoshino's involvement with the former. The system is a fantastic way to keep strategy in consideration, allowing the player to maximize the efficiency of their turn by exploiting enemy weaknesses, yielding turns to others in the party. And pitting enemies' attacks against them, resulting in increased or decreased actions depending on how it's played. There's also a retry prompt to turn back the clock, which would suggest more leniency than what is largely considered of SMT games. Beyond the skill, melee, item, and guard prompts that are given, an interesting thing to note is the word front seen next to a character in their turn order. This, along with a formation prompt at the bottom UI, may suggest that there will be a positioning aspect to Metaphor's combat. This could work similarly to the rows seen in the earlier Final Fantasy games, where characters can be situated in the front or back, emphasizing or de-emphasizing certain attacks and skills as well as factoring into enemy reach. Such a design choice could make its class system more nuanced, as characters under the mage and healer designations may benefit from being placed behind heavy hitters. This could also affect turn order and attack accuracy, resulting in careful consideration of Metaphor Refantazio's party placement. Shin Megami Tensei is no stranger to mild action elements. The Reidu Kuzunoha games were full-action RPGs and the ability to attack in the overworld followed Reidu into his, or Dante from Devil May Cry's, cameo in Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne. More recent Persona and SMT titles have integrated a first strike system for wandering monsters, and Persona 5 added stealth elements on top, befitting its Phantom Thief aesthetic. Still, none of that comes close to what Metaphor Refantazio is doing. Hot on the heels of this year's excellent Persona 5 Tactica, the Persona series is getting a major reimagining of one of the most beloved entries in the franchise with February's Persona 3 Reload. Ahead of Persona 3 Reload's release, the game continues to look impressive with the way that it takes the setting and characters of the PSP classic and reinvents them using the slick presentation and eye-popping visuals of Persona 5. What's less known at this point, though, is where the next mainline game in the franchise stands in terms of Atlus' future release schedule. A recent leak purported to reveal that Atlus has Persona 6 projected for a 2025 release date, and even though Atlus itself hasn't made any official announcements, it's not far-fetched to imagine the game not releasing in 2024. Without an official reveal arriving before the end of 2023, there's not likely to be any new information or an official announcement of Persona 6 until later in 2024. However, what is known is what Atlus has planned for fall 2024, roughly 6 months after the release of Persona 3 Reload. Metaphor Refantazio's projected fall release puts it almost exactly at the halfway point between the release of Persona 3 Reload and the rumored release of Persona 6 in 2025. And, with the game's many obvious similarities to the Persona series evident in the trailers and footage revealed for the game up to this point, it's shaping up to be the exact kind of holdover that the Persona series spin-offs traditionally are. Whether this means that players have seen the last of the Persona 5 spin-offs remains to be seen. But it could be the sign of Atlus shifting gears ahead of the next major release in its social RPG juggernaut. Saber Interactive and Focus Interactive brought a new trailer for Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2 to the Game Awards, giving us our latest look at one of the most anticipated Warhammer games of all time. We also finally have a release date of September 9, 2024. We are thrilled to finally reveal the release date for Space Marine 2, Saber Interactive COO Tim Willits said in a press release. The entire team has poured their passion and creativity into this game, and we can't wait for players to experience it at last. It's been an incredible journey, and we're excited to share the fruits of our labor with players and the Warhammer 40,000 community. Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2 comes well over a decade since the launch of the previous game. The hybrid action-slasher third-person shooter once again stars Titus, this time working against an overwhelming horde of Tyranids using all manner of firearms and melee attacks. It's one of several Warhammer 40,000 games making waves as of late, with 2023 seeing the launch of the first-person shooter Bolt Gun as well as the CRPG Rogue Trader. The recent reveal of Moon Studios' new game No Rest for the Wicked at the Game Awards 2023 has caught the eye of mine and the gaming community's interest, especially since the studio is known for its fantastical Ori series. Given Moon Studios' debut game Ori in the Blind Forest and its sequel, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, were story-led mystical Metroidvania games, No Rest for the Wicked's violent, precision-based combat and darker interwoven narrative comes as a stark contrast. The game's trailer demonstrated this best after it showcased visceral fighting and malformed monsters underscored by No Rest for the Wicked's haunting theme music. However, the sudden shift in tone, style, and gameplay isn't a total shock, as Moon Studios confirmed it was working on new projects away from the Ori series. In particular, founder and CEO Thomas Mahler even suggested via social media that the studio's next game could be a make-or-break moment, which could have been the first clue to how different No Rest for the Wicked would be. But whether Moon Studios' shift in development for No Rest for the Wicked proves successful or not, the studio's new, more mature direction could potentially lead to more success. While many players will think about Hollow Knight or Axiom Verge when discussing successful Metroidvania games by indie developers, Ori and the Blind Forest is invariably included among these. The game proved so popular that it received a direct sequel with Ori and the Will of the Wisps, featured its titular character in fellow indie games like Rivals of Aether, and even led to Microsoft looking into making the Ori series Xbox and PC exclusive. But even after the sequel received similar acclaim, Moon Studios' next game was something completely different despite fans hoping for a threequel. When Moon Studios confirmed it was working on an all-new action RPG shortly after the release of Ori and the Will of the Wisps, it did suggest that it might someday revisit the Ori series if given the opportunity. But when it was confirmed that Microsoft wouldn't be publishing Moon Studios' then unnamed No Rest for the Wicked due to allegations of oppressive workplace conditions at Microsoft's management, it seemed that the Ori series no longer had a future with ties between the two companies cut. The absence of Microsoft's backing may have prompted Moon Studios to take a bolder approach midway through developing its third game. Though Moon Studios was already aiming to expand its work into other genres, stories, and styles. It's possible that a damaged reputation associated with the well-known Ori games meant that No Rest for the Wicked needed to put distance between the two. For example, while the stories of both Ori games were bittersweet and fairy tale-like, No Rest for the Wicked has teased violent combat, medieval coups, and monstrous plagues. In doing so, Moon Studios could be hoping for a redeeming fresh start, especially when it has already successfully diverted attention onto how different its new game is and away from its history. No Rest for the Wicked is arguably so different from Moon Studios' earlier Ori games that players might not even realize it. Beyond transitioning from 2D platformers to a 3D top-down RPG, No Rest for the Wicked appears to offer more with homeownership, crafting, farming, fishing, multiplayer, and more. Even its Steam page confirms the game will be far more mature with warnings of possible gore, strong language, and nudity. The most noticeable difference that the trailer presents between No Rest for the Wicked and Moon Studios' previous work is the title's switch to an overhead isometric perspective rather than the 3D assets on a 2D plane as in both Ori games. This perspective switch makes perfect sense given the switch in genres and the tendency for ARPGs to adhere to this kind of camera view. And it also gives players some insight into what they can expect from No Rest for the Wicked's world and combat. Right off the bat, the focus on environments and a lack of HUD elements presents a stark contrast to games like Diablo or Path of Exile. While there are likely going to be skills and abilities that players can acquire throughout their playthrough, as well as potential for a variety of classes, the lack of cooldown timers, skill icons, and health or stamina meters allows both the world and the characters that inhabit it to take the focus. As an ARPG, No Rest for the Wicked will undoubtedly have more of a focus on combat than platforming or traversal as in Moon Studios' Ori games. But the emergent gameplay and environmental design present in the trailer are still very much in line with what players would expect from the studio. Both Ori and the Blind Forest and, to a greater extent, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, feature combat. But the platforming and traversal through each game's world was where Moon Studios placed its focus in both titles. In comparison, No Rest for the Wicked looks to involve all the trademarks of a nuanced and complex combat system, with the trailer showcasing dodge rolling, parries, and what appear to be some intimidating and challenging boss enemies to encounter. It also has some serious platforming and I'm interested in the level design. No Rest for the Wicked has been set apart by its trailer's fantastic music. Composed by Jason Graves and featuring Maluka, the trailer's song, We Prayed for Summer, has been well received by audiences. The song contains both dynamic instrumentals that greatly accent the visuals and beautifully tragic vocals that convey a lot about the story. Its high quality certainly induces confidence in this bold departure from the Ori series. Beginning with the instrumentals, vocals only emerge around 0:33 in the trailer. Before this point, echoing vocals carry the music, though even here they're married quite well to the sounds of turbulent seas and crashing lightning. This emphasis on atmosphere is a feature of some of the all-time best video game soundtracks, such as in The Witcher 3, it helps immerse the player in the world. The atmosphere in this initial section is dire. The lack of instrumentals reflects the solemnity of a shipwrecked crew lost to midnight tides. Strings build as the studio logo is shown in the trailer, and percussion joins once gameplay is revealed, as if signaling the drums of war. This perfectly escalates tension, providing a strong contrast to the building music of the earlier section. Brass parts swell up, surging in time with the action. The percussion does the same on a more focused level. It beats in time with the fall of a flying creature or the landing of various attacks. This musical dynamism, seen in games such as Dying Light 2, adapts the score to the action on screen. It would be great to see No Rest for the Wicked take this element into its soundtrack, especially with how well it works here. The lyrics are also a standout element in this trailer, helping differentiate it from Moon Studios' past games. Sounding almost like a siren song, echoing without instrumentals and played over churning waters, the first verse sets up the idea of something returning. The singer references her drowned sister and how she still visits by the light of the moon. The chorus, which plays twice in the video, then begins. Its lyrics can tell us a lot about what the game's core ideas might be. We prayed for summer, we prayed for fall, likely references religious rituals related to harvest, as was common in medieval societies. To prosper, to love, to forgive, /for harvest, for mercy, for rain references broader concepts in its first iteration and more concrete things in the latter, emphasizing the more dire circumstances in the following instance. Our prayers came back like a little lost lamb, dying so that we may live, / and our prayers came back like a voice in the dark. Answered, but not quite the same, both reference that idea of returning. The first iteration's mention of a sacrificial lamb is likely an invocation of a Christ-like figure, furthering the game's religious undertones. Moon Studios has captured the attention of gamers again with No Rest for the Wicked and its haunting music. I'm really looking forward to No Rest for the Wicked. Capcom formally revealed a brand new trailer for an upcoming title in the long-running Monster Hunter franchise, Monster Hunter Wilds. This trailer was shown at the Game Awards 2023 show, which not only showcased awards for members in the gaming industry, but several trailers from various companies. This includes the likes of Square Enix, Bandai Namco, and Sega showing off exciting new titles at the Game Awards for fans to look forward to. Capcom was also present at the show, with an ambitious new Monster Hunter game being revealed. Ever since 2018, Capcom's Monster Hunter franchise has become one of its most profitable franchises. This can be stemmed from the global success of Monster Hunter World, a game developed to attract a large audience. This momentum continued into the 2020s, between the releases of Monster Hunter Rise, Rise's Sunbreak DLC, and the launch of Monster Hunter Now this past September. Capcom is continuing to capitalize with another game in the series seemingly modeled after World, Monster Hunter Wilds. Capcom showed off Monster Hunter Wilds as the final world premiere trailer of the Game Awards 2023 show, with a release window for 2025. It starts with a rather realistic and gritty desert environment, inhabited by realistic, but still fantastical, creatures roaming around. As a storm starts brewing, it cuts to a hunter being chased while riding atop his bird-like mount, similar to the series' Palamutes. They carry one of Monster Hunter's great swords, though they carefully navigate themselves around their enemies rather than try to take them all at once. While the hunter is avoiding combat, the trailer shows a storm that can strike at a moment's notice. This likely means having the player prioritize on avoiding the weather and lightning strikes when it happens, along with the monsters that are attacking them. Monster Hunter Wilds also shows great environmental traversal opportunities, such as being able to leap nimbly across rocks to get to a higher part of a mountain, or using their mount to glide through the air. The end of the trailer shows the storm subsiding, with the environment calming down and color being restored to the area. After the trailer shows the game's logo, Monster Hunter's iconic rat halos can be seen flying overhead. This game is being developed for PS5, Xbox and PC, skipping out on the Nintendo Switch. With World's rather open structure, Wilds seems to be following in its footsteps, though it is too early to tell if the open nature of the game means that it will be an open-world game. Hideo Kojima appeared at the Game Awards 2023 to reveal his Xbox console-exclusive horror game OD, which he is making in collaboration with Jordan Peele. Hideo Kojima first announced his collaboration with Xbox years ago, but details on the project have remained hard to come by. Some leaks have reportedly revealed some footage of Kojima's horror game ahead of time, but the project has mostly remained secret. With the Death Stranding 2 reveal, some Kojima fans have been wondering if the legendary developer's Xbox game was being put on hold. After all, the Death Stranding 2 reveal trailer showed a game that is seemingly far along in development, while virtually nothing has been shown of Kojima's horror game. While fans still haven't seen proper gameplay of Kojima's horror game, they now at least have a new trailer that has revealed some members of its cast. The Hideo Kojima horror game OD remains shrouded in mystery, but fans now know who will appear in the project. Sophia Lillis, Hunter Schafer, and Udo Kier have all been confirmed for OD, though their exact roles have yet to be detailed. In the meantime, it was also confirmed at the Game Awards 2023 that legendary horror director Jordan Peele is working with Kojima on OD, which bodes well for the project, to say the least. Fans will no doubt be wondering what exactly OD is, and unfortunately, the answer to that question remains elusive as ever. It was teased during the Game Awards that the Kojima horror game will use Xbox's cloud technology and will be an immersive experience. It was also teased that OD will be something no one has ever seen before. Kojima stressed that OD is very much a video game, but at the same time, it's also a movie and a new form of media. Jordan Peele added that OD is unlike any other game. It's going to be crazy. Recent projects from Kojima Productions have made a concerted effort to push the boundaries of what is expected from the gaming industry, with Death Stranding being the most glaring recent example of this. In the run-up to Death Stranding's release, Hideo Kojima stressed how the game transcended the traditional labels of genres through the gaming lens, with the project having an overall focus on delivering a thematic experience like no other. Death Stranding has been widely labeled as the first in a new genre known as Strand games, with the title's ability for fans to help other players outside the usual parameters of multiplayer experiences being the core of what makes this new genre tick. Death Stranding is a deeply isolated and lonely experience, seeing players make deliveries in a barren and perilous landscape with many geographical hazards to navigate. Players can place invaluable tools like ropes and ladders to circumnavigate these hang-ups, which can then appear in other people's games to give a sense of community and a shared approach to achieving goals. This revolutionary approach to developing games is seemingly going to a whole other level with the release of OD, with Kojima himself stating how the game is attempting to transcend the concept of video games as a whole to usher in a new medium of interactive content. The trailer for OD featured highly realistic and emotive performances that became increasingly distressed and disturbing, immediately showcasing the creeping horror elements that are set to be at the heart of the title. Kojima also stressed how OD can best be described as a merging of gaming and film, likely meaning that fans should prepare for a deeply cinematic experience that showcases interactivity away from the usual gameplay loops that games have historically employed. This could hint towards OD featuring unconventional multiplayer interaction in the same way Death Stranding did, with players potentially tackling horror scenarios as a collective through the cloud. With OD presumably being an abbreviation of overdose, the main purpose of the title is to supposedly push fans to the limit of overdosing on fear itself. And players pulling out of experiences may directly impact how they are perceived by others who are still braving the terrifying gameplay of the title. While more will become known about exactly how OD functions in the near future, it is clear that Kojima and Peele are attempting to create an entirely new medium in their most ambitious project yet. OD's teaser features Sophia Lillis in a dark room and somewhat confidently says, "The hungry purple dinosaur ate the kind, zingy fox, the jabbering crab, and the mad whale, and started vending and quacking." It's almost as if her character is being prompted to say this. It makes no sense yet out of context besides being a phonetic pangram, and it may not be clear what exactly it means until more is revealed about the game. Another character portrayed by Hunter Schafer repeats this strange phrase, but is visibly distressed, as if she is about to break down in tears. It isn't clear what the source of her discomfort is, since all that can be seen is her face. The characters do have a strange reflection in their eyes. It is a door opening, but it's not clear what it is. The same bizarre phrase is repeated more slowly and deliberately by German actor Udo Kier, who also has a strange reflection in his eyes. The view then cuts back to Sophia Lillis, who remains silent for the most part. Her eyes appear heavy, as if she is struggling to stay awake. A door is heard opening in the background. Lillis doesn't immediately react, but whatever comes through that door makes her scream briefly, as if she is initially frightened, and then realizes she is looking at something familiar. Many fans have been waiting a long time for Kojima to make something this frightening since PT the reveal trailer for Death Stranding gave viewers a lot more information to work with, even though it was filled with unsettling and confusing imagery. The trailer for OD is far more minimalist, and this is perhaps what makes it so disturbing. Viewers are left with so many questions about what the seemingly nonsensical phrase means, why the characters are repeating it, where the characters are, and why they are there in the first place. It would also be interesting to know exactly what comes through that door. Less is more here. A lot is left to the imagination, where the Death Stranding trailer all but bombarded the viewer with unsettling and confusing imagery with relatively little explanation. It seems unhelpful to speculate too much about what exactly is going on with OD's trailer. Hideo Kojima excels at subverting player expectations and turning conventions on their head. All that is known for certain is that Kojima has set out to make a truly terrifying experience, and is touting OD as an entirely new style of game. Shortly following the OD announcement, Kojima Productions filed for several trademarks that appear to substantiate the notion that the upcoming title will have multiplayer elements, or even be a full-fledged multiplayer experience. Specifically, the studio submitted applications to trademark the terms social stealth and social scream system. The latter of which even has an SSS logo that can also be seen at the very end of the OD reveal trailer. The term social stealth is not necessarily indicative of multiplayer features, as underlined by the fact that many Assassin's Creed titles have implemented social stealth as a decisively single-player mechanic over the years. But Kojima's growing interest in experimental multiplayer experiences like the Metal Gear Solid 5 FOB mode and Death Stranding social strand system indicates these trademarks might indeed be hinting at something more along those lines. Even the very name of the social scream system sounds similar to what Kojima Productions called the asynchronous multiplayer features of Death Stranding. PT, or Playable Teaser, was a demo released in 2014 for a new game in the Silent Hill series that was being developed by Kojima at Konami before being cancelled in 2015 and having the demo removed from the PlayStation Store. Despite never amounting to a fully released game, PT has had a massive influence on the horror gaming genre as it introduced a unique style of looping gameplay wherein players would walk down a hallway and through a door, revealing new horrors with each loop. Many games have tried to replicate the feel of PT in the years since it was released, but OD might finally be the true successor players have been waiting for. It's clear Kojima had created something special with PT, so it's a shame that the full game never saw the light of day. However, some of the elements that were intended to be used for PT's gameplay may have been reused or reworked to fit within Kojima's vision for OD. If this is the case, it makes sense that he would want to utilize the familiar imagery of PT to tease fans of the demo and build excitement around the potential OD holds to carry on PT's legacy. The likelihood that OD is the successor to PT seems fairly high at this point, given the obvious reference made during this presentation at the Game Awards. Even the name OD being comprised of two simple letters is reminiscent of PT, so there is a clear through line between these two projects. However, this connection doesn't necessarily mean that OD will end up as a one-to-one copy of PT or of the Silent Hill game it was supposed to be a demo for. It's been almost a decade since PT was released, and in that time many other horror titles have built upon the foundation that it established for the genre. As such, OD will need to bring something new to the table if it's truly going to be the new style of horror experience that Kojima claims it will be. While the horror genre has become saturated with PT-like games in the past decade, Kojima Production has the game development chops necessary to create a brand new experience using PT as a base in a way no developer has before. And it's possible that these references at the Game Awards were meant to symbolize OD's evolution out of PT, as several fans later realized. Inspecting Kojima Productions' latest trailer frame by frame reveals 5 light gray letters that briefly appear in the mouth of Udo Kier's character, starting from around the 40-second mark. The letters spell out the word Atami, which is the name of a seaside Japanese city located in the Shizuoka prefecture to the southwest of Tokyo. In kanji, the name of this prefecture is written. A literal translation of those characters would equate to quiet or silent and hill, as recently noted by Reddit user GlazicBLR. That may not be the only connection between this carefully hidden word and the Silent Hill franchise. According to a 2013 entry from a Nico Nicopedia page detailing the original game, the setting of the 1999 Silent Hill was partially inspired by Atami. However, that claim isn't attributed to any particular source, so its veracity remains dubious because Nico Nicopedia is a Wikipedia-like crowdsourced platform that anyone can contribute to. Time will tell whether these PT references in the OD reveal presentation are a big deal. Hideo Kojima is a creator who injects horror into everything he does. Even his projects that are not officially classified as part of the horror genre, such as the Metal Gear games, have a touch of frightening elements. The Metal Gear games are filled with creepy moments, ranging from the bizarre encounter with the man on fire in the Phantom Pain to the Colonel's fourth wall-busting rant in Sons of Liberty. When Kojima does tackle the horror genre directly, he creates games so terrifying that they stay with the audience for years afterward. Like Metal Gear, Kojima's 2019 game Death Stranding is not officially a horror game, but contains plenty of terrifying moments and thematic elements. Some of the game's most effective horror comes from the sheer isolation of the setting. Sam Porter Bridges can sometimes trek for hours without encountering another living being besides his companion BB. There are also a few jump scares, usually when Sam meets some of the frightening and aggressive creatures inhabiting the wasteland. The director's cut version of the game even added nightmares that Sam can have which directly reference PT, and, of course, are just as creepy as the game that inspired them. Like Kojima, Jordan Peele is unafraid to experiment with many different ways of making an audience feel scared. Kojima also indicated that he is collaborating with other people he has wanted to work with for a long time, describing the team-up as the Avengers of horror gaming. He did not name any names, although some fans wonder whether Guillermo del Toro, with whom he worked on PT, will be returning to help with OD. Hopefully, as more information is revealed about both the game and the team creating it, horror fans will get a better idea of what kind of nightmares OD will be leaving us with after playing. By blending the latest technological advances with a focus on cinematic storytelling, Hideo Kojima has delivered some revolutionary experiences over the years. With its star-studded cast and a teaser trailer already more unsettling than many full-length horror titles, OD looks to be the next step in the iconic creator's artistic evolution and may prove to be his most impressive and immersive title yet. The Game Awards 2023 has already seen a slew of announcements, including a massive showcase from Sega that gave a look at upcoming new games in the Jet Set Radio, Shinobi, Crazy Taxi, Streets of Rage, and Golden Axe franchises. No official release dates were given, but I am happy to finally see these classic Sega game franchises getting some highly desired new entries. One of the biggest names in gaming, Sega is a Japanese video game company best known for the Sega Genesis and Dreamcast game consoles and the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. While Sonic may be one of the company's most popular titles, other iconic franchises like Streets of Rage and Jet Set Radio are considered to be long overdue for the remake treatment and new games. Just announced at the Game Awards, Sega revealed a showcase trailer that gave glimpses of its upcoming new games in its Jet Set Radio, Shinobi, Crazy Taxi, Streets of Rage, and Golden Axe franchises. The trailer came as a welcome surprise to fans who have been asking for over a decade for reboots of these beloved Sega franchises. Sega's slogan for the trailer is, "New Era, New Energy," suggesting that the company may be seeking a renaissance of sorts. Players who enjoy retro-style fighting games and colorful action games are likely to have plenty to look forward to with this new era in Sega's evolution. One of the most popular titles included in the trailer, Crazy Taxi, was first released on arcade cabinets in 1999, before being ported to the Dreamcast console in 2000. Also released in 2000 was Jet Set Radio, a colorful and charismatic game that has built a cult following. The oldest games shown, Shinobi, first launched in 1987, and the original Golden Axe was released in 1989. Streets of Rage, one of the most popular beat-em-up fighting games of all time, was published in 1991 for the Genesis. For fans who enjoyed playing the original launches of these titles, their new entries have been decades in the making. Sega fans old and new will have a variety of content to look forward to, including these games shown in the trailer and more. My most anticipated from this list is Shinobi, Streets of Rage and Golden Axe. In a statement from a press release by Sega, co-COO of Sega Corporation and Sega of America CEO Shuji Utsumi stated that this new initiative on reviving these dormant IPs was thanks to the success of the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise in recent years. He specifically states that the franchise was brought to life and reached a new audience. Building off that success, we are digging into our legacy and reimagining several franchises to bring these games to more audiences around the globe, says Utsumi. Our ambition will be to create great games with memorable characters and worlds. We hope fans of all ages will look towards our future with anticipation as we release these projects in the coming years. The Sonic the Hedgehog franchise has had a rather strong period through 2022 to 2023, where not only did it follow on the heels of Sonic Frontiers' sales success, but also an incredibly successful movie sequel. Other strong points include the release of Sonic Origins Plus, Sonic Superstars, and the launch of Sonic Dream Team earlier this December, on top of regular updates for Sonic Frontiers. While indie titles such as Bomb Rush Cyberpunk have filled a void left behind in Jet Set Radio's absence, Sega fans have been assured that the series is not done yet. In an interview with the Washington Post, Sega of America CEO and Sega Corporation co-COO Shuji Utsumi stated that the developers originally from Smilebit and Blitworks are involved with bringing Jet Set Radio back. Originally released in 2000 for the Sega Dreamcast, which Utsumi was involved with, Jet Set Radio blended roller skating action with graffiti and music in a cel-shaded art style that has become synonymous with the series and games inspired by it. In a slide presented during a management meeting last week, Sega provided a few additional details on the upcoming titles. For Crazy Taxi, it is innovative and fresh style driving action. Cheerful feeling of freedom x fusion of nature and city, peel out the new stage of Crazy City. For Jet Set Radio, it describes counterculture. Tokyo Street open world experience, the rebellion movement that feels free in a suffocating society. Make friends, increase your fans, and create a movement. Shinobi was described as slay the enemies in the silence of the moment. Run through the world of Shinobi, full of monsters and ninja actions. Grab Abrozuki, the legendary sword, and slay evil once more. Your clan and the world are counting on you. Golden Axe warriors arise to subdue the demons. Defeat your enemies with a variety of attacks with swords and magic. The legendary story about the battle axe, Golden Axe, is about to begin. Streets of Rage Revolution, the beloved side-scrolling beat-em-up action series. Take control of one of the ex-officers and make the city a place where people no longer have to walk the streets of rage. Co-COO of Sega Corporation and Sega of America CEO Shuji Utsumi addressed the absence of Virtua Fighter from the lineup of revivals announced at the Game Awards. Utsumi revealed that he agrees the fighting game franchise is overdue for a brand new entry, and that the company is evaluating the potential for a new title. We are evaluating right now. Virtua Fighter doesn't use so many tricks, special moves like in Street Fighter, it's very realistic. How can we make it more dramatic? It's something we're working on, says Utsumi. Utsumi's concern has some merit, as the fighting game space in 2023 and 2024 is jam-packed with incredibly impressive entries in franchises like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, and Tekken. Virtua Fighter is more grounded with realistic blows and martial arts, unlike fellow 3D fighter Tekken, which includes superpowered fighters despite its incredibly technical gameplay, so it has a bit of an uphill battle when trying to stand out. Regardless, many classic fighting game fans would love to just see another entry in the series. The first Virtua Fighter released in 1993 and was incredibly influential for the fighting game genre, as it pushed the envelope with its technology and 3D graphics. While the franchise isn't as prominent as it used to be, Sega is still supporting the series in small ways. 2021 saw the release of Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown, a remake of the PS3 original using Ryu-Ga Gotoku Studios' proprietary Dragon engine. Sega will also be releasing Virtua Fighter 3 TB Online, an updated version of the original Virtua Fighter 3 that will be releasing exclusively in Japanese arcades. New evidence suggests that Sega could be reviving some of its seemingly forgotten franchises. Several new trademarks related to Sega's historic franchises have been filed. This could indicate an intention to reboot them alongside the games Sega announced at the Game Awards. Jet Set Radio, Crazy Taxi, Shinobi, Streets of Rage, and Golden Axe are already confirmed thanks to the announcement trailer at the Game Awards 2023. But Sega has also filed trademarks for Afterburner, Altered Beast, Alex Kidd, Kid Chameleon, Outrun, House of the Dead, and Super Monkey Ball. Sega could have filed these trademarks simply to protect its historic IP, but more reboots, remakes and sequels can't be ruled out. It's great to see Sega tapping into seemingly forgotten IP, and there is plenty to be excited about already. There is no telling what the future might hold, but Sega has a clear dedication to creating enjoyable experiences for its fans while respecting the legacy of its historic franchises. Audiences have already begun celebrating some of the biggest announcements from the Game Awards 2023. And the Sega New Era trailer has caught the attention of retro gaming and beat-em-up fans everywhere. Daniel Mullins, the indie developer beyond the 2016 meta-hit Pony Island and 2021's 2021 roguelike deck builder Inscription, has a new game coming, and it's a sequel. Pony Island 2 Panda Circus was announced at Thursday's The Game Awards with a quick trailer, replicating the crude arcade-like style of its predecessor. We didn't get a release date or window, but it's still a good look at the thoroughly spooky-looking sequel. Where the original Pony Island combined a parody of autorunners with a puzzle game about hacking Satan's computer to escape an afterlife where you were forced to play Pony Island forever. Pony Island 2 seems to be leaning more into the every game idea all at once aesthetic of the developer's other games, The Hex and Inscription. Trailer suggests a combination of pixel art JRPG, 2D mounted archery, croquet minigolf, twin-stick action, and clown-based conveyor puzzling, as well as more demon-related computer hacking. There are also live-action segments in which Sungwon Cho plays some kind of antagonistic overlord named King Yen, and then someone plugs a USB stick into a bow. Basically, it's a lot. Familiarity with previous Daniel Mullins games suggests you'll need a lot of patience for self-referential stuff and video games about video games. If that's your cup of tea, Pony Island 2's release date glitches between 2025 and 2026 at the end of the trailer, so you might need to wait a bit. I love Pony Island 1 and I'm definitely experiencing this one. The upcoming open-world action game, Rise of the Ronin, just got an official release date in a new trailer at this year's Game Awards. The latest title from Team Ninja was announced last year but, until now, gamers have been left wondering when they might be able to get their hands on it. Now, this question, along with some other information, has finally been revealed. Team Ninja showed off Rise of the Ronin last year, but it was mostly kept under wraps until recently. Given that the Game Awards are often a favorite venue for developers and publishers to make big announcements, it's not surprising that this year's event was the chosen forum for a new trailer and launch date to make an appearance. The new trailer provides a release date of March 22, 2024, along with some exciting new visuals and combat gameplay as well. While not offering too much concrete information on the plot, it does give some hints about the game's central conflict as well as show off some beautiful scenery and interesting characters that will be a part of Rise of the Ronin setting. Finally getting a release date should be welcome news to Team Ninja fans and any PS5 players that love samurai stories. Between the visceral combat and the intriguing, dark plot that has been hinted at so far, the developer seems to be delivering lots of things gamers are hoping for in Rise of the Ronin. The fact that the title is only a few short months away likely won't hurt either. Team Ninja has a proven track record of delivering high-quality action games. Time will tell if Rise of the Ronin fits the bill and lives up to the legacy of the studio's past games, but fans will find out when the game launches on March 22, 2024, exclusively for PlayStation 5. During the Game Awards 2023, Square Enix revealed a teaser for a new entry in the long-running Mana series, Visions of Mana. While the trailer shown at the Game Awards leaves some questions unanswered, the teaser is full of cinematics, combat, and some familiar sights. While it has had periods of dormancy, Square Enix's Mana franchise has been running since the release of Seiken Densetsu, also known as Final Fantasy Adventure, in 1991. While Final Fantasy Adventure likely flew under the radar for many gamers at the time, Secret of Mana, the title's SNES follow-up, quickly became a classic. The titles have followed the story of the Mana Tree and Mana Sword, though exactly how they play into the game depends on the individual entry. Now, Square Enix has revealed Visions of Mana, a new action RPG in the series. The trailer reveals protagonist Val, from the Fire Village of Tian'ie, who is on a mission to deliver the Alm of Fire to the Mana Tree. Not much is known about these new protagonists or their mission, but the theme of reviving or protecting the Mana Tree has been present since the start of the series. The brief trailer shows the lead character exploring the world and its various environments, and some familiar enemies make an appearance, like the iconic rabbits, mushbooms, and what appears to be the mantis ant. All three of these made an appearance in the original Secret of Mana, suggesting a return to the series' roots. According to Square Enix, the game will feature a semi-open world, with real-time combat featuring a party of characters. The company states on the development website that players will reportedly need to make decisions on the fly while considering their environment, as well. In keeping with the series' return to form, series veterans are returning to develop the title, including the composer of the original Secret of Mana, Hiroki Kikuta. Other team members who have worked on subsequent or remake titles include producer Masaru Oyamada, character designer Hakan, monster designer Eri Yoshioka, and additional sound from Tsuyoshi Sekito and Ryo Yamazaki. As this is the first major entry to the series in the last 15 years, it looks like Square Enix wants to celebrate and return to what made the series so well known in the first place. Without even mentioning the rest of the year or any unannounced surprises that have yet to be revealed. The first 3 months of 2024 are absolutely stacked with back-to-back launches of long-awaited sequels in some landmark JRPG franchises. Like a Dragon, Persona, and Final Fantasy each have a new game arriving in the first quarter of 2024. And they're quickly followed by several other titles releasing at a steady cadence over the subsequent several months. Even better, there's a great mix of turn-based combat and ARPG-style games in the mix, indicating that there's something for just about everyone. A new game in the Mana series releasing in 2024 joins the ranks of other classic franchises seeing series revivals during the year. With both Suikoden's spiritual successor Eiyuden Kronstyle 100 Heroes finally arriving after suffering some delays and the first new game in the Saga series aiming for a release sometime next year as well. The 2023 release calendar was one for the ages, but already 2024 is gearing up to give it a run for its money, especially where JRPG fans are concerned. Fans of the Case of the Golden Idol, myself included, have some new news to celebrate. During the Game Awards, Playstack and Color Gray revealed The Rise of the Golden Idol, a fully-fledged sequel to the beloved 2022 indie hit The Case of the Golden Idol. The Spider of Lanka builds off an already amazing base game to give players a deeper look at such an intriguing world. It is full of political intrigue, shady characters, and countless mysteries waiting to be uncovered. While I might have liked to see a few more cases, that is only because what was presented was just that good. With an enigmatic trailer filled with hints at the sequel's wider story and some riddles of its own, The Rise of the Golden Idol has officially been announced for PC, consoles, and for the first time, on mobile through the Netflix app. The detective game, which, like its predecessor, allows players to investigate scenes freely and build their motives, will be released worldwide digitally in 2024. 3 centuries following the unspeakable fate of the Cloudsleys in the Case of the Golden Idol, the legend of the eponymous relic has all but faded. Now, it is carried only in small whispers, uttered as an obscene myth. Some are determined for this to change. The Rise of the Golden Idol follows a tenacious relic hunter on a quest to unearth the powerful artifact that, if the legend is true, can reshape the world. As the observer, you must investigate 15 strange cases of crime, death, and depravity. Like before with the Case of the Golden Idol, you are free to investigate however you wish and build your theory. You must make sense of a grand mystery that unravels across an age of hallucinogens, fax machines, parapsychology, and TV guides. Enlightenment seekers, convicts, chat show hosts, and corporate middle management will all have a role to play in the wider mysteries that unfold. Like always, many of these subjects will have their motives. Some will be carrying more than agendas. Nexon Games' new third-person looter shooter The First Descendant has caught players' attention with its most recent trailer boasting cutting-edge fidelity and gameplay design familiar to anyone who has spent time in the genre. Initially announced in the summer of 2022, Nexon's The First Descendant is set as a showpiece for harnessing the potential of Unreal Engine 5. A beta for The First Descendant in September showed promise, garnering a healthy following eager to get its hands on the game. With polish to the movement, shooting, and enemy AI systems, the game absolutely has the opportunity for mainstream appeal. Being free to play and Nexon's expressed commitment to a live service model might or might not result in a long lifespan for The First Descendant. Interest in the game has renewed with a release date trailer at the Game Awards, targeting a summer 2024 debut. I like the boss fights and movement from what I saw, and I'll check it out. Dead by Daylight single-player game. The casting of Frank Stone has been revealed. Most fans know Dead by Daylight as an asymmetrical horror 4v1 game, so the casting of Frank Stone will be a much different kind of experience. With the rich lore set by Dead by Daylight, the new game looks to pave the way for expanding the original characters and settings found in the franchise. Behavior is teaming with Supermassive Games for this new project. With Supermassive's own history of working on games such as Until Dawn, The Quarry, and Little Nightmares, to name a few, this partnership has a lot of potential. Supermassive's strength is in its storytelling and narrative work, so many fans expect that the upcoming title will follow in those footsteps. Whether Supermassive's experience with terrifying monsters will come into play is still an unknown factor, but it should prove interesting. The casting of Frank Stone is set to release in 2024 on PS5, Xbox and PC. Behavior's Matthew Coate was excited to confirm the official details of the previously teased new entry in the Dead by Daylight franchise. The upcoming title will be a heart-pounding narrative set in the world of Dead by Daylight similar to the Dark Pictures anthology. The player will get to make decisions to shape the game's story. The game will be set in the fictional location of Cedar Hills and will include a cast of young friends trying to uncover Frank Stone's legacy. It is yet unknown whether any of the survivors or killers from Dead by Daylight will make an appearance or if all new characters will be introduced. The trailer that came out seemed to show fresh faces but gave the same vibe as Dead by Daylight. Interestingly enough, the franchise's trademark hook was also shown in the video, adding to the feel of the teaser. The casting of Frank Stone is set to follow a group of young friends as they explore an Oregon steel mill, set within a town that has been forever altered by the actions of a gruesome killer. With the steel mill being host to twisted horrors that have stemmed from these vile killings, players will have to navigate the choices of a cast of core characters, leading to a winding and branching narrative. The gameplay that this will offer will be a huge departure from the short-form tension of Dead by Daylight, but the crossover potential between the two games is already clear to see. Dead by Daylight often introduces new characters to its list of survivors and killers, with this being one of the biggest factors that has kept the game fresh since its 2016 release date. Dead by Daylight is in a perfect position to help the casting of Frank Stone. Supermassive Games made its first major mark on the video game industry with 2015's Until Dawn, which saw players control a friend group in a remote location as they navigated lurking horrors. Until Dawn was lauded for its memorable characters and branching storyline, with even the smallest actions that the player makes having a significant impact further down the line. Building off this success, Supermassive Games would later create similar anticipation around the release of 2022's The Quarry, which employed much of the same premise in a different location. The Quarry was met with less plaudits when it eventually released, with many players seeing it as too much like Until Dawn without justifying the similarities with a more impactful story or characters. This is something that absolutely needs to be considered in the casting of Frank Stone, and there are some immediate tweaks that can be made to shake off these past criticisms of the studio. The casting of Frank Stone is unique thanks to its presence in the Dead by Daylight universe, and this could be key to giving the title its own identity away from past Supermassive entries. Fans are already noting the potential crossovers between Dead by Daylight and the casting of Frank Stone, and the gameplay of the latter may play into this. For example, Frank Stone is set to be the murderous antagonist of Tico FS, and the game should let players control the figure for certain sequences. This would add a fascinating element to the casting of Frank Stone where players are simultaneously working toward the core character's survival while playing a part in their downfall as Frank Stone, with the potential narrative branches that this could create being obvious. With the general premise and core characters of the casting of Frank Stone seemingly following the same formula of The Quarry and Until Dawn, turning the game's antagonist into a playable character could be the key to evolving the premise of past Supermassive releases. With many expecting Frank Stone to be added to Dead by Daylight as a playable killer, gameplay sequences centered around the figure would be a great way to show what abilities he would have as a DBD killer. While it was also not mentioned, many fans already expect that whichever killer or survivor will be introduced in the game could also debut in Dead by Daylight soon after. With Dead by Daylight's roadmap for 2024, there are a lot of dates where the game's assets can come in. This new collaboration between Supermassive Games and Behavior Interactive could start more crossovers between the two companies if it succeeds. Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. The Game Awards 2023 trailer showcased an intense clip of Senua in the game's world but still gave no release date for the title. The release window of 2024 was confirmed by Ninja Theory back at the Xbox Bethesda showcase in June this year. While the community will be delighted to see a new trailer showcasing the grit and beauty of what awaits in the title, we will have to wait a bit more to learn when the game releases in 2024. The community has seen very little of the game beyond a couple of trailers and discussions in development regarding the tech, like photogrammetry for Hellblade 2 facial animation, being used in creating the game and how realistic they are striving for it to be. This should be of no surprise to those who have already played the first title and are aware of the gameplay intensity and the graphical splendor. The Game Awards 2023 Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 trailer begins with the titular character gingerly walking in a grim-looking world. The voices in her head are still harrowingly murmuring. The protagonist goes on a monologue and talks about a place of fear and fury. The cinematic sequence continues showing different settings of the world before switching to Senua, engaging in brutal combat and nightmarish scenes. The clip ends with the protagonist's iconic submerged look and restating the 2024 release window. It is one of my most anticipated games for 2024. During the 2023 edition of the Game Awards, Square Enix surprised Final Fantasy XVI players by shadow-dropping the first of 2 paid DLC expansions. Titled Echoes of the Fallen, the first expansion for Final Fantasy XVI will see Clive and the party uncover a mystery surrounding ancient technology and the black crystals associated with them. The news of Final Fantasy XVI's first expansion arrived as the Game Awards drew to a close. Final Fantasy XVI was nominated for 4 awards during the show, including Best Narrative, Best RPG, and Best Performance for Ben Starr's portrayal of Clive Rosefield. However, it took home 1 prize, as it claimed Best Score and Music at the Game Awards, to the delight of Final Fantasy XVI's lead composer, Masayoshi Soken. Fans congratulated Soken and Creative Business Unit 3 on social media for their efforts. But the good news did not stop there for FF16 fans. The setting for this expansion takes place before Final Fantasy XVI's climactic battle against the godlike entity called Ultima. In Echoes of the Fallen, Clive is given a black crystal by Sharon, who claims to not know much about it. Eventually, Clive and the party come across some black market traders, which leads to an investigation into some fallen ruins. This excursion will ultimately lead Clive into a confrontation with the Omega Weapon, one of the Final Fantasy series' recurring superbosses. It remains to be seen how the latest conflict with the Omega Weapon will compare to past iterations. The price of Echoes of the Fallen is $9.99. However, Echoes of the Fallen requires a new Final Fantasy XVI patch to access. Between the patch and the expansion, players will need to make an additional 18 GB of space on top of the 90 GB that the game takes up. In addition to Echoes of the Fallen, Final Fantasy XVI confirmed that the second paid expansion, The Rising Tide, would launch in spring 2024. In that expansion, Clive and the party will travel to the land of Mysidia, which is a recurring location in the Final Fantasy series. The second DLC will culminate in a showdown against the watery icon called Leviathan the Lost. Only time will tell how the confrontation with the icon of water will play out. Both Echoes of the Fallen and The Rising Tide are available as an expansion pack for $24.99. Additionally, a Final Fantasy VII Rebirth theme song was played at the stage revealing some of the game. To finish this announcement spree from the Game Awards 2023, God of War Ragnarok Valhalla DLC was announced. It has already been released. The God of War Ragnarok Valhalla DLC will have roguelike elements and promises to be an emotional, unexpected, and fun new twist on God of War Ragnarok. I'm saying, this is a must-play for all God of War fans, especially the OGs. A lot of throwbacks and memories are there, and it is about Kratos accepting his past, not running away from it. And re-emphasizes that Kratos has always been a multi-dimensional character, and people who claim otherwise and says he was one-dimensional in the Greek saga are full of shit. Go play this DLC right now, it is free and it is worth it. The Game Awards overall was a good show, and I don't care about the awards. But getting nominated and winning Game of the Year really boosts the sales of these games, and provide more reach among the casual gamers, so kudos to them. And that's all for the video, ladies and gentlemen. Like and share the video for a greater audience. Comment your thoughts on the topics, and donations are always appreciated. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon, and until then from SMPV, it's goodbye.